everyone to today's Early Careers and Mentoring webinar, empowered by Waitmans and Arcadis. Delighted to welcome you into the studio. We have Peter, Sophia and Ian, and we're going to come to our stellar panel in a second to get you to do the intros. But this is a topic, isn't it, that everyone is passionate about. No one out there watching, either watching live or watching on catch up is always wants to help and support our future talent. So today we're going to delve into it because it can be overwhelming at the start of your career. It can be overwhelming. Where do I find a mentor? Everyone seems to have one of those. So we want to try and unpick it. So whether you're watching today, whether you're in the middle of your career, whether you're just in academia, whether you're starting an apprenticeship, university, whatever it may be, we want to try and help give you some top tips and takeaways and why mentoring and supportive workplaces are so very important. So together we are bringing across the desk today some super mentors. Sophia Ali, multi-nominated in the Northern Power Women Awards over the last few years, haven't you?
I can't believe I was nominated 3 times.
Well, I can. And actually what makes me laugh before I get into the intros, Sophia made it over to Liverpool last night, pre-recording with her dad, John. Big shout out to John. When you were in the restaurant last night, what was the first thing you started doing?
Mentoring. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Alfie, it was this lovely person who was serving us. And I always remember when I was at university in Manchester and I used to silver service at the airport and people used to ignore you. So I always make a point of actually talking to people. And he started telling me his life story and we started mending him then and there. And my dad's going, I can't believe you're actually mentoring somebody sat here having an Italian.
But that is the whole thing around mentoring, isn't it? It can take place in any space, any moment. It just requires the most important thing and the thing that we lack sometimes, which is time.
Yes.
So let us dive into our mentoring and early careers. I'm going to ask you just to give you a quick overview of what you do, who you are, where you're from. Sounds a bit Cilla Black, this, doesn't it? I'm in Liverpool. And describe your role in sort of 3 words that your friends would understand at a dinner party.
Oh, okay. I'm Peter Forshaw. I'm a partner at Waitmans law firm. I've been there for nearly 30 years now.
I should make a career of that, Peter.
Well, I vowed I would never get a job and stay in one place for nearly 30 years, but here I am, older and definitely not wiser. And I'm what we call a casualty claims partner. So I deal with claims, employers' liability and public liability claims for insurers, employers and owners of premises. But the other aspects of my job at Waitmans are I'm the firm's CSR partner and the LGBTQ plus lead on DE&I. So I get to mix with a lot of different people within our organisation, get to work with and support a lot of people, which I found really inspiring.
Multi-nominated Sophia Ali.
Yes. My life, well, I'm Sophia Ali. I own managing consultant in Minx Consulting, but people know me from lots of different disguises over the years. Currently, I'm also one of the founding committee members of the Institute of Innovation Management. I started life as a garment technologist, completely different world. Fashion was my thing, and I was a specialist in tailored menswear. And after 25 plus years, I decided to set up my own business. And the one thing I could always do was this auditing of people and businesses. And mostly because I love meeting other people, seeing what people do and the kind of different things that are available out there in terms of opportunities. So I love working with businesses where there's lots and lots of young people. And I thought, what's the best thing I can do? Set up my own business and just go around doing what I really like doing.
And this is the whole thing. At the start of your career when you were doing garment technologist.
Yeah, so I was basically a garment engineer.
Who knew that was even a job?
Exactly. I wanted to go to fashion school and I went along to the interview and I just got sidetracked. So I went for one interview and ended up getting another one and ended up getting 7 places back in the day when you had UCAS and PCAS.
Wow, God. See, there's no one straight path, is there?
There is no straight path.
Ian,
and that's what
Ian, what about you?
Morning. I'm Ian Dodgson. I'm a business director within Arcadis. So Arcadis are a global organisation and we provide professional services to the built environment. So design, asset management, project management, commercial management. And my role nowadays is a business director within that organisation. So I'm responsible for our rail business in the north. And so, we look to improve quality of life. We do that by improving the quality of the rail network for everybody through our design services of infrastructure. I'm nothing to do with whether your train was on time this morning, Simone.
I love how you caveat that in there.
Don't call me about that. And I suppose I started off as a graduate civil structures engineer in the early 90s. I probably do look old enough.
Absolutely not.
And and I worked through various sectors through my career. Ended up in my sort of spiritual home, which is rail, and that culminated in the role that I fulfil now.
And if you could go back, Ian, and give yourself that one bit of advice as a young'un, which obviously was not so long ago, I'm just backing that up now.
Thanks,
what would that bit of advice be?
I think really, I've always tried to do this, but the advice would be to do more of it, and that is actually say yes, take a personal risk, a bit of jeopardy, because I can point to several stages in my career. Maybe we'll talk about it where I've either been asked to do something and I've said yes, and that's been formative, really. So do more of that.
Say yes, work it out later.
Yes.
It's always been one of my favourite ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Peter, what about you? What advice would you give?
I think primarily be curious. Be like a sort of sponge, soak everything up that everybody gives you, because every little bit of advice, every little bit of insight, every little bit of support informs you and helps you. And just ask as many questions, build as many connections as you can. So be curious about everything around you and everyone around you.
Love that. Sophia?
Never, ever worry about failure. Failure is first attempt in learning. That's what you need to learn. The more you fail, the more you'll learn.
Absolutely. So look at me, already writing down those tote bag takeaway moments already. But if you've never failed, you've never tried, right?
Yeah. And I always say, I do mentoring at Manchester Metropolitan University, and I always say to the students, up until this point, I get the engineers who are straight A students. And I say to them, what happens when you first fail? Oh, I'm never going to fail. And that's not going to happen in life. So it's good to have those moments early on, and then you get to know a lot.
And just the three of you again, did you always know what you wanted to do?
I did to a degree, but not exactly doing what I'm doing now. So when I was sort of growing up, I was really interested in, crime thrillers and investigation and the legal aspects of that. So in my mind, I was going to become a criminal barrister.
Okay.
As it's turned out, I've become a civil solicitor, which is a completely different type of law altogether. But equally, it's still, I suppose, helping people logically working through legal conundrums, applying the law, etc. So yeah, a little bit of what I intended to do, but didn't work out exactly as I thought.
Just a little bit of like a recipe.
It is.
A recipe.
It is. A few ingredients are in there, but not all of them.
What about you, Sophia? Did you know?
My dad was a weaving instructor, so I spent a lot of time in mills, and I think that's where the textile-y, fashion-y background came from. But other than that, it was just that whole thing like you would do. You follow in your parents' footsteps and you do something similar. But no, I didn't. And I think a million years I'd be owning my own business.
Ian?
I think when I realised I wasn't going to play for Manchester City, I probably was...
Pep didn't know you at that point,
exactly,
right?
Simone. To be honest, I probably started steering myself towards something organisational where I could do something hands-on with people, and that probably formed my early views in terms of going into university and early career.
And we talked about failure. Sophia, when you look back, did you make any mistakes early in your career that turned out to be really valuable learning?
Not early in my career, but when I got to a good point in my career, I did. I kind of got too ambitious. I'd done a lot and I thought I deserved a little bit more. So I deserted the one person who was my best mentor in life and left that business. And then really went on a roller coaster of a ride. I didn't realise how good it was what I had. And when you're not getting quite that right pay, or you're not getting quite the right environment to work in, and you want that little bit more, and greed kicks in. And I think it was the biggest mistake I ever made. That person was actually my mentor for 7 years of my life.
Wow. He's still in touch now?
Unfortunately, he passed away after he sold his business. And it was the one thing I never got to tell him, how good a mentor he really was.
Well, you're saying it now. You're saying it
I
now.
am indeed.
And we talk, I'm not always a big fan of the phrase imposter syndrome, but sometimes we can have at the start of your career, you think, can I? Am I okay to do this? Did you experience any of that? I know you talked about saying yes, Ian, but did you experience any of that? Oh my God, can I really?
Absolutely. And still do. This is my first podcast webinar. I was traveling over feeling a little bit nervous this morning, and everybody has imposter syndrome. And I think, when you're in an early career situation, I think you have to realise that, and also appreciate that, on day one, you can have an impact because everybody is learning from each other all the way through your career. You're all learning from each other. We're learning from each other today, and I think the realisation of that, helps build confidence, and especially with the way that sustainability and the digital agenda and societal expectations are different. Anybody coming into any industry now are teaching people that are already in that industry, and I think everybody should appreciate that in an early career situation.
I agree with all that. I mean, I inherently have major imposter syndrome feelings, and kind of always have done. But one thing I always say to people is, I think everybody has inherent insecurities, even the people who come across as being the most confident. And you see that, don't you, on social media and stuff. There are some people out there who you think, oh God, you have an amazing life. You're everywhere. You've got a huge circle of friends. I know some of those individuals, and I know they are inherently insecure. So, everybody, I think, has, as you say, that sort of slight imposter syndrome in them. And I think you should embrace that rather than fear it and worry about it.
I think that's one of the big things around that really positive traits around leadership is that vulnerability piece as well. Yeah. And going, feel a bit nervous today. That Simone's going to be tough with me on this podcast. I'll be for you in a minute, Ian. Thinking back though to when you were starting your career adventure, what was it your colleagues that did around you at the time that made you feel like you could feel supported? Was there anything specific? Was it mentoring? Was it, just being available? I
think, looking back, I don't think we had a process, or certainly didn't call it mentoring in the way that we talk about it a lot now, but actually it was going on. And I was very lucky because I started through the sort of training contract route of entry into a law firm. You naturally had 4 6-month placements with a supervising partner who was basically your mentor. And I had some amazing supervising partners. And when I qualified, I had an equally supportive and guiding mentor who'd been at the firm a long time, had done lots of different roles. And the one thing that stuck with me from day one, and as you start out as a lawyer and you're handling your own cases and you're serving clients, you feel it's a big responsibility. You can't get it wrong. And my supervising partner said to me, there is nothing that can't be put right if you're open and honest about it. And I've had that all the way through my career. I've instilled that in other people as well as I've helped and mentored them. We all make mistakes, and the important thing is to own up, seek help, and your supportive network around you will help you resolve them and resolve them well. But you've got to be open about it. And
that's where it becomes two-way. And I think this is already highlighting that mentoring comes in different formats. Some of it can just be a walk around the block. Some of it can be, actually, I've been part of this structured sort of rotation, if you like, that I'm able to find out what a mentor is, even before we know what mentors are. They can be big or small bits of your life, can't they?
I had an experience where I did a year out in placement at my university degree, and I ended up in the northeast of England. And one of the tasks I was set was to make a men's tailored jacket every week. And every week I used to make a cup of coffee, turn up at the meeting, and basically they used to ridicule my workmanship of where I'd gone wrong. And part of that whole exercise was to learn to speak to everybody on the shop floor, because you had to learn all the processes. Part of it was actually being able to do that demonstration piece where you could sit and explain to everybody what you'd actually achieved all week. And I used to love it because there were 60-odd-year-olds who basically knew everything about the industry. And in that time, they were giving quality time to me as this one individual and focusing on me. It wasn't a formal session, like you said. It was just ad hoc over a cup of tea, but the amount of learning that was being achieved in that whole process for everybody around the room was immense.
And we talked when we had a pre-call last week around, we deal with and work with a lot of further education and university students, people going into apprenticeships. And there's always that bit of worry, the basic stuff of, well, how do I know when I can go to the loo? When do you know you can make a brew? What do I do with my phone? Those silly things can be sometimes the worry of people starting into industry. What do you think employers can do just to make that easier or simplified?
Yeah, I think. I mean, a lot of organisations now have some structured programs around early careers. Peter's already referred to that, and I was a part of that. And within Arcadis at the moment, we have a Grow program for apprentices and graduates, and a lot of that softer stuff, as well as the learning, is covered by creating the right sort of network and support. And I think that's a really good idea for any organisation, actually. For a small organisation, maybe you hook up with a network, maybe use We Are Power, maybe you hook up with other smaller organisations to form a network of graduates or apprentices in early careers. If you're a larger organisation, then organisations like that encourage that network across businesses, and some of that softer stuff is included in those Grow programs, and also that peer group pick up the ways of work, if you like, from each other.
Yeah. I think sometimes there is no rule book, is there?
No, there isn't. And I think, looking back when I started, as I say, I had this supervising partner who I put on a pedestal, and he knew everything. But there were things like, when can I go to the toilet? Would not be a question I would ask him. It was too mundane and it was too silly. But actually what we have now as part of our program is not only do we have the sort of senior technical mentors, but we have the buddies. We have those people who are close in age to the new starters, close in experience or inexperience, that actually you can have those more, informal kind of little chats with and just say, oh, how would you do this? How would I do that? So it's having those sort of different connections and supports in place.
And I think that's when sometimes we do a mentoring program that sits around our Northern Power Women Awards. We do a big program for FE colleges and students as well. And again, all in different formats. But I'm always a fan of it's the relatability. Everyone can, and sometimes people go, gosh, what makes me a good mentor? And I'm like, well, often the time it's just being, as you've said, being curious and listening. But everyone can do something, can't they? You've mentioned and mentored an awful lot of people over your experience world, Sophia.
I've done some really mad things. I've taken.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
I've taken somebody shopping because they'd never had a suit. And they didn't understand how to eat maybe at a restaurant properly. And you don't have to assume that everybody's done all these things. So to give them the opportunity to learn and help you guide them through that whole experience, and so they're not frightened. And I love the buddying system. I totally agree. If you've got somebody who's near your age, who's gone through that whole process, they're very new to it, they've only just gone through it themselves, it's great to have that environment around you as well to support it.
And when you're mentoring, what's the most common things that mentees, if you like, come to you for advice on? Confidence
building. They always seem to that whole imposter syndrome. That what happens if I do something wrong bit? What happens if I make that mistake in my career? What happens if I've chosen the wrong career? There's a lot of that doubt that comes into it. And all you really need to do is give them the hope, and the rest just comes through naturally. Do you find, because you're part of our mentoring program, aren't you, Ian?
Delighted to be, yeah. That's really interesting for me, actually, because I do quite a bit of mentoring internally across the business, so I get to see things within Arcadis. But the program through We Are Power, I've got a mentoring relationship with somebody in a completely different, completely different industry, and it's really interesting for me as the mentor. And in actual fact, there's a bit of 360 mentoring emerging because of the different experiences of the mentee. But I think that what I see, I agree with Sophia. It's about confidence building in mentor relationships, and often confidence to take that next step and being reflective, if you like, in terms of, and also exploring the motives, the underlying motives around a mentee's reason for making a next step. Because often in discussion, that actually changes the goals that the mentee wants to achieve, actually, once you actually unpack it a bit. I find that is a common...
Yeah. And I think as well, for me, particularly with the students I mentor, it's not only the confidence to take the next step, but it's the how do I take the next step, or how do I get the experience, how do I get the information that I need to be able to make the decisions? Because a lot of the people that I mentor are at university, or they finish university, but they don't have connections in the legal sector. I was very lucky when I grew up. I I do a lot of amateur dramatics in my own time. So as a sort of 14, 15, 16-year-old, I was mixing with people in their 30s, 40s and 50s, some of whom were solicitors, some of whom were barristers, who I could just sit at rehearsal and say, what do you do? How do you do it? And then they'd say, well, why don't you come in and just shadow me? But if you don't have those connections in your family or your friend circle, you need mentors and other people to be able to kind of help you to think, right, how do I get that access? How do I get that understanding to help me decide, do I want a career in law or do I want a career somewhere else?
It's just having someone to have that conversation with. That's why we have the 12-week mentoring program that sits around the awards. And it's light touch, but often those relationships will go on and on. Some will just stay in that window. But sometimes it's just about I always think mentoring's about you being the best version of you. It's not being the best legal professional or financial services or business owner. It's about you being you. And when we get these messages back going, just talking out loud with someone that was about, for me, it's just unbelievable. I didn't think people cared. And I'm like, this community particularly absolutely passionate about giving back.
And it doesn't stop. I'm currently being mentored by a person in Sweden. And I'm mentoring somebody who's over in Trinidad and Tobago. So that whole thing, it's not just about here now or, in the moment or somebody down the road. You can have mentors all around the world.
Ian, have you had any aha moments from when you've been mentoring on either side of it where you've gone, oh my God, I didn't realise that?
Aha moments, maybe not aha moments, but maybe a recognition that that perhaps, and going back to the imposter syndrome, may be a recognition that in actual fact my experiences are of value to quite a few people, even people that are actually following a different path, because there's so much transferability of experience in terms of career development or overcoming issues or tackling the next step, as we've said. I suppose that's a realization that the transferability, across sectors and across industries.
And I'd just like to anyone watching today, I would love you to shout out in the chat anyone who has made a big difference in your career. Drop them in the chat and give them that high five moment, because I think sometimes, those individual things that people might not realise have really changed your world. First question coming in is, what's your best ever character you played in Amdram?
So there's a musical called The Producers,
Yes.
and I played the nervous accountant in that, and that was brilliant fun.
Following on from that, is there anything around mentoring, like any myths that you would like to bust? Sometimes when we're getting people together, we always have so many mentors, but sometimes mentees might sort of hold themselves back and think, oh, I don't want to waste their time. Oh gosh, what do I need? I don't need anything, I'm fine. But any mentoring sort of myths that we can bust out there?
I think a couple of things that I sort of see. I mean, one is I think sometimes mentees think they're going to sit and listen and they're going to be given all this information, which isn't the case. I mean, I think what I try and do is ask questions and get the mentee to kind of formulate their own views about things. But equally, and again, it probably comes back to that sort of aha moment, it's very much a two-way process. I learn and develop just as much as the mentee because of what they tell me, in the same way of things that I sort of pass on to them. So yeah, I think it's a two-way thing. It's not kind of the mentee's there to kind of just soak everything up and learn everything.
Yes. Sophia, you said your favourite time is watching a young person turning from that caterpillar into the butterfly.
Yes, I keep mentioning this. Yeah, I love it when you're sat in a room and, like you just said, there is no preconceived idea about what is going to happen in that room. You could come out with some interesting conversation, and as a good mentor, you'll pursue that and say, why has that come out? What were you trying to explain? And that might be actually the real reason why you're sat in the room, and not their preconceived idea of what they think they were there to learn or from you or take away from you. But I agree with everybody in the room. It's about you learning a lot from them. So it's a two-way street, and you're never going to waste anybody's time. And a really good mentor will love to spend time with you. And
you touched on it, Peter. One of the reasons that you want to do this and support this is, if you like, building social capital around, people who don't have one of our recent projects that we did, our Power Pack, out of the students, not one of the students had access to or what they would say a relatable role model or buddy within either their family life or from a work perspective, or in their community. And that's why, if you like, that's why we seek to exist, if you like, to build that in. But what would you say to someone watching out there today and going, I could do with one of these buddies, but who'd give time for me, or I could do with a mentor? What would you say? Where would you start looking?
I think organisations like yours, I mean, or within the workplace, or as I say, organisations like your own. What I've found in our own organisation, because I sort of arrange some of the mentoring with third parties, is that there's often no end of people who want to become mentors, and so there's loads of people out there who want to help, and it just takes the mentee to say, actually, I'm looking for some help, and the help will be provided. So never be shy in coming forward, because the help's out there. Any
top tips from you?
I would agree with Peter there. Mentoring is enjoyable. So, so most mentors will say that. So there's no end of volunteers, whether you've got a formal mentoring system within your organisation or not. And I think Peter said earlier on that back years ago, the sort of concept of mentoring was perhaps more informal, and you just got good people bringing people on in an organisation. Nowadays it's recognised, as a more useful tool and a structured method in businesses. But whether you've got a structured method in your business or not, if you want a mentor, reach out, and you will find that people are willing to assist.
What are the best ingredients for a mentor-mentee relationship? What do you want to see from your mentees?
I'd like to see them being honest on screen. I'd like them to be able to be open about what they want to find out, and just show their interest as it is. My mentee in Trinidad and Tobago, successful person, should be no reason why he needed a mentor in that sense. But what came out on screen was he needed to write a book. Didn't realise he needed to write a book. It was a bit of a frustration. And after about 2 sessions, we realised that's what needed to come out. And he was like a little school kid sat rocking around in the chair. And I was just, you could see that moment you said about the butterfly part. It was happening in front of me. And all of his life changed in 2 sessions. So it can be lots of different things.
I think from my perspective, something I always say to particularly trainees who are starting out, but even people before they join a law firm, is just be agile and flexible. They have on their side, they have the benefit of having decades ahead of them to be able to make decisions about their future. And I think, I'm not saying that people who've got very fixed ideas don't have a successful career. Clearly they do. But I think when you're 16, 17, 18, 19, I would just say be flexible about what your career might be, and learn from the different experiences that you're given and the different insights that you're provided with. You've got plenty of time to make your final decision as to what career you go into.
I think just to add to that as well, Simone, I think it's about building rapport as well. I mean, obviously a good mentor-mentee relationship is built on openness and trust and confidentiality, I hasten to add. But it's about building rapport. And also, if that rapport's not coming, you can stop and you can choose a different mentor as well. Those would be the things that I would add.
And I think that's, we've talked about self-belief, confidence, imposter syndrome. We've talked about that today. That will actually stop people sometimes from leaning in to go ask, because they're like, I don't want to bother Peter. Really busy. Don't want to stop him. But what would you say?
Imagine you're on the edge of a cliff and you're going to grow some wings on the way down and take that jump. That's what I would advise.
There's so many T-shirt moments today, isn't there, with our Sophia?
That's what you need to do. Yes.
Butterflies.
You just, honestly, sometimes the whole point about life is you just go on a little bit of a journey. And that's how you've got to see that whole mentoring experience. You're going to try something. If it doesn't work, you're exactly right. You find somebody else. Yeah, go on LinkedIn, find somebody, you can take somebody down to the pub for a drink and you'll find somebody to talk to. It doesn't have to be in that
That's
logical
just you,
place.
Sophia, isn't it?
That's
Into
just
restaurants,
me, yes.
talking to waiters.
Anybody, anywhere. Yes, I think that you've got to find the right person. And I agree. There is this whole part of the trust part. It's all confidential. Nothing's going to get out there. And I think in this world that we live in with AI and with social media, etc., people will probably be, what will happen if I say something that's personal? And you've got to trust that person is not going to do anything to you.
And that's a good point, actually. We talk about, we all, we have to be under a rock to not look at AI and technology. Can AI technology ever take the place of a mentoring relationship?
I'll have a go at that one. So, I mean, there's a lot of development of AI models now that are programming in empathy. I met a guy on a flight between Hyderabad and Bangalore, and he worked in San Francisco, and he was working on a project that was actually developing empathy characteristics in AI models for involvement in the medical profession. So I've no doubt there's going to be some significant developments in AI. But what AI will have to do is get that empathy and rapport right, because as we've just been discussing, that's a key part of actually building a relationship with trust in mentoring. So as long as they get that right, there could be some value in it.
And you know what? It might just sometimes just having someone. I use AI, I use the audio function because I never like to waste a minute. So when I'm walking into the office or whatever it may be, I'll do it. And sometimes it's good to just get sort of instant bite-size feedback, or just even sometimes to say things out loud. Because I think that's the great thing about relationships, isn't it? You say it out loud, you're like, oh gosh, I'm going to manifest this now. What's the most impactful mentoring relationship you've ever had, Peter, and why? Without getting into the confidential of the details, but there was the one that sort of struck out with you, whether you're a mentor or mentee, that you were like, I love that.
Yeah, I think it was probably when I sort of mentored one of the students, because you could sense their frustration. You could sense that they had the thirst, they had the enthusiasm to have a career in the law. But as I say, they didn't have those, they weren't in that fortunate position where they had those connections already to capitalize on it. And not just through the mentoring that I was doing, they were very hungry for education, and they were going to events themselves and making connections. And also I was introducing to people. And slowly through that network, they started finding, that there were things they thought they might want to do, but they then didn't want to do as a career. Equally, there are other areas of law that they'd never even heard of or thought about that started igniting their interest. And they now want to go into cyber crime and cyber law, and they've got connections, and they're now developing that. So, that for me is where somebody's gone from a position of just being so frustrated and not being able to take it to the next level to now kind of seeing a career path opening up for them going forward.
And that can work at any point. So even if you're midway through your career, you can be lost sometimes, stagnate, not sure where to go. Sometimes just having that out loud conversation make a difference, can't it?
I think so. And maybe the relationship early on in your career, the mentor is probably provides more, advice, because you don't know what you don't know in your early career. And I know I had a great mentor when in my early career, as I was trying to find my way, and sort of he picked up on the sort of direction I was going in, and gave me a lot of opportunity to go on site, go to Nigeria, go into rail and things like that. And I suppose as you get later on in your career, maybe that relationship becomes more reflective, rather than suggestive. And it's still as valid later on in your career as it is in early career.
And that's where your yes moment came in, isn't it? So if you were given those opportunities early on in your career, you're saying yes to those opportunities, you now afford other people. It becomes like that ripple effect, doesn't it? That you want to give to other people going through yours.
It absolutely does. Just on that point, I if I've been on leadership courses and things like that, and describing a role model, I think of Bill, my old line manager, long retired. And I like to think I emulate Bill's style in terms of the way that I deal with people and give opportunity to people now.
Be more Bill. That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
What can organisations do to make talent coming into big organisations, medium organisations, small, make them feel like they're not just surviving, but they're thriving?
I think businesses need to understand that they need to look to the future. If you're wanting a business that's highly innovative, you need to bring in very creative people. But the very fact that they're creative people, they also need an environment to flourish, to keep that creativity. So you've got to find that balance of people in the business who are going to encourage them. I see these two guys here, obviously, from businesses where everybody gets an opportunity. And it doesn't matter what the business is. It's all about the future, I think, and giving those opportunities.
And, we've talked a lot about mentoring at the start of your careers, what businesses can do. those great moments, the Bill moment. But if you could be mentored by anybody, past or present, real or fictional, Amdram, playing to your strengths here, Peter, who would it be and why? That's a mean one for me to throw in, isn't it?
I think I'll go for Deborah Meaden.
Oh,
Yeah, I think I'd love to have her mentor me, and I think I'd had a lot of respect for her, and I think that's one of the things you've got to have for a mentor. You know, that little bit of, and I think she'd really change me as a person.
I think I admire either Barack or Michelle Obama.
See, I'd go Michelle. Oh, yeah, that'd be mine.
I think they were both great statespeople in a difficult environment, and I thought they were really progressive, and very people orientated. So maybe along those lines.
I said, I want Michelle, but then I'll just come along. It'd be fine. Peter.
Well, I suppose I'm going to link to my Amdram roots, and I'm going to say purely because I'd like the mentoring to take place in the pub having a drink with him.
Well, that's what Sophia's already.
Well, absolutely. I'm taking the leaf out of your
book.
Sir McKellen, because I just think as an actor, as a titan of his profession, but also the sort of the lobbying and stuff he's done on diversity and inclusion, I find him quite an inspirational character.
Oh, that's a whole dinner party we've now created.
It is. It's definitely a dinner
I love
party.
that. And if you were starting your career again today,
That's an interesting one.
what would you love to have a go at?
I think I'd like to have a go at politics. Probably the right complete opposite of what I would have thought when I was younger. I wouldn't have had the confidence to do it then. I think probably I would have the confidence to do it the next time round.
Okay.
It's a good question. Probably I'd spend perhaps more time outdoors than I have done in my career, despite periods of time on site and whatever. So maybe I'd go a bit more outdoorsy. Having said that, I have no regrets. I've had a great career so far, not finished yet. But yeah, maybe something a little bit more hands-on, outdoorsy.
But maybe with a better northern climate at times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose a bit similar to yours, really. Something that involved more overseas placement, travel, and whatever. But then my other job hasn't started yet, because when I retire, I'm going to be a West End theatre stage doorkeeper. So that's that's what's going to happen.
Oh, and obviously we need Sir Ian McKellen to mentor you through that great opportunities.
Well, clearly, I'd
right?
like him to be in the theatre performing on the time when I start my job.
Well, look at this. This is live mentoring right here on the We Are Power podcast. And,
if he's listening, I want him to get in touch.
We'll send it to him. He's often up north, isn't he?
Absolutely.
So
Great supporter.
we will do that. And so, kind of just tracking back to sort of that first question, what advice you're giving your younger self. And then we sort of started off with that, but just sort of reflecting on what we've gone through today. There's so much to say yes to opportunities, being curious. What would you say to anyone out there that the young Peter or Sophia or Ian?
I think I would probably follow Warren Buffett's advice. He always says that it takes 20 years to build a business, and I'd probably have given myself that advice. It's going to take 20 years to build you, Sophia, and take your time. There's no rush in it.
Before you go off into politics, right?
Yeah, before I go into politics.
Peter.
Make as many connections as you can, both within your organisation and in your wider business community, because every connection will help you or give you an insight or give you a step up or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, both great points, and make those connections real relationships. You spend a lot of time at work. Make relationships, within those networks, because they stand you in good stead. And the taking the time bit, really, really key. You early on in your career, don't stay in your lane. You have time to pivot and experience a lot, and that's formative. So take your time, be patient.
Wow, politicians, actors, stage doorkeepers, outdoor, but with full foulies, right? Full outside weather gear. We have covered a lot today on the podcast, and actually, you've broken it down into very simple terms. The key recipe or the key ingredients to the recipe of starting your career or around mentoring is saying yes to opportunities, being curious. Don't be afraid to mess it up. Don't be afraid to fail. And if you do mess it up, then come clean and ask for help, because people will help. People will give that time. People will give that walking around blocks or go in the pub with you two. Just ask, because fundamentally people want to help, because it's the give or gain moment. So thank you so much for being so fantastic today. Thank you all for joining us on today's webinar. You don't know where the time goes, do you? It's suddenly
so quick.
before
It was
before you've gone. We've created a dinner party for fun here as well. So if you want to come, just drop in the chat who you would love to mentor you. We would love to know that as well. No one else from Michelle Obama. No. We can't stretch her any further. But thank all of you, and we are so happy that Peter, Sophia and Ian have joined us today. So many top tips, so many takeaways, but whether you're at the start of your career, whether you're stalled in your career, whether you're sort of a little bit not sure where you want to go, just speak, ask questions. People out there, get onto LinkedIn, get in touch with us at We Are Power. We've got 15,000 people on our digital hub. And we have a whole section on there, which is about, this is what I've got to give, and this is what I've got to gain. So even you who want to gain or find a mentor as well, think about what you can give as well, because it's always that two-way street. So thank you all for joining us on today's webinar. Please keep the conversation going in the chat, because it's never just about this 45 minutes. It's about what happens out of this. And thank you, 3 amazing panelists, for joining us today, and we will see you next time.